two, pardon me, are the brokers for media options, which is the 5 years running, the top brokerage company in the world. You sell domains, acquisitions and sales, almost exclusively for end users, not for domain investors. So basically, you spend all day, every day talking to end users, and you're seeing a shift, a tipping point, a change. I mean, supply and demand has always been a problem with domains, right? 676 of the two-letter, right? .com.
Right.
Well, supply and demand's always been a problem. It's just that we're shifting up the curve, right? We're just much further along the supply and demand curve than we were 10 years ago, and that is getting really, really, really interesting. I thought of an analogy the other day. We recently came to Lisbon, and in the Lisbon real estate market, you ask yourself, when you arrive here, it's a magical city. It's an amazing place. Anybody who's ever wanted to come to Lisbon, there's a great reason to come in June for NamesCon. See you there. But the real estate market here it's very interesting. You've got these absolutely incredible buildings. You've got the second oldest city in all of Europe. It's older than Rome. People don't realize that. This is the only city older in all of Europe, older than Lisbon, is Athens. And so it's truly an incredibly unique city. The topography is similar to San Francisco, but obviously the architecture is extremely different and far better. And you sit here, you walk through the streets, and you think to yourself, well, what a great place. The weather's perfect. The food is great. The people are kind. I don't understand. Why is this the cheapest capital city in Europe? None of these things that make Lisbon great, none of the things that make Lisbon great have changed. The food's always been good. The people have always been kind and humble. The architecture has always been beautiful. The streets have always been of cobblestones, and there's, the main factor, the beaches have always been beautiful, right? The sunset's always been falling into the ocean, and, there's always been 300 days of sunshine. So none of that has changed. But the market has gone up by 300% in the last 5 years. And so you ask yourself, why? What triggered that, right? Why all of a sudden did the Lisbon real estate market go from mediocre, not even mediocre, sub-mediocre at best, to absolutely booming? One of the hottest real estate markets in the world, even though it's still cheaper than most other European cities. You sit and you're asking yourself, why? What was the trigger to set off the market trajectory? And why, where are we in that curve, right? Like, it's very scary to think,
right?
The market went up 300% in the last 5 years. It's bound for a correction, but I don't think so. Now, we're purely speculating on Lisbon real estate here, but I don't think so, and it directly relates to domain names. Excellent. I don't think so, because in the last 5 years, what has happened? What's the answer to that question that you're asking yourself? Well, they took off rent controls, okay? Let's just call it regulatory changes, okay? These previously socialist policies that were very protectionist to the renters, particularly the elderly, have been removed or made far more lenient, more capitalist, and so more free market. And so what happened? Foreign investment came flooding into the market. And if you're like me and you can live anywhere in the world as long as you've got an internet connection, and you're going to all these different cities, and we travel frequently, and you're thinking to yourself, well, is this a place I could live? Is this? And we've been doing that for years now, thinking about what's next. And Lisbon wasn't even on our radar. We landed here, and I can tell you there's not a better quality of life in the world. And right now, right, time and place. And I think it's the best value, right? So I think, no, we're not headed for a correction just yet. At some point, it'll obviously slow down. But it's going to keep going up because suddenly the market has, you know, the blinders have been taken off the market. These policies and you know, there were outside factors influencing, depressing the market. And I think the same is can be said for domain names in many different ways. But
tell me a few ways how that's the same with domains, Drew.
Okay, so one of the ways that's glaringly obvious in the last 12 months is people's sudden distrust of social media, right? And so
right.
Suddenly you had all these brands, and I remember it all. I think I even said this before. It started with Absolute Vodka, and they may not have been the first, but they're the first ones on my radar. And I was driving, I was in Boston, I saw a billboard, and at the bottom of the billboard, and nowhere on that billboard did it say absolutevodka.com, or maybe they own absolute.com, I don't even know. But they didn't reference any piece of intellectual property that they actually own. You know, they only reference a Facebook page. And I thought,
right.
You know, even my uneducated, I hadn't dug into this at all at that point. I just thought that doesn't feel right. You're a huge company, a huge brand, and you're putting your own advertising dollars behind promoting a third-party brand that doesn't benefit you in any way unless you're a shareholder of Facebook. So it just immediately didn't make sense to me, right? But that was the trend, and it continued, and it increased. And then, boom, it suddenly blew up. And what we've been preaching for years became incredibly obvious to many people. It still needs to work its way through many more. But it was like, if you don't own your touch point with your customer, you don't own your customer. You don't own their data. You don't own the relationship. You don't own anything about them. And you're spending 100%. The cost of customer acquisition is 100% yours, but the relationship and the data now belongs to a third party.
Yeah.
In what circumstances does that make any business sense?
It's horrible. I mean, I've heard it say that it's you know, traffic you control versus traffic that you own. And and that I've actually talked about that quite a bit. This thought of authenticity, right? Are you authentic? Do you, like today, we evaluate, there's the great study by Reese and Reese. I need to buy it again by the book. There's another book they have coming out, but it talks about positioning and leadership, and really, like, I'm on this kick with authenticity. Like, do you look authentic?
Yeah.
So I mean, actually, I took it a different way. Okay, back to your point, like the direct response marketing. Do you control it or do you own it? Right. But I think it comes back to authenticity. I mean, people are getting kicked off the social media. I think that's where you're going with that.